Hey everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and I'm excited to bring you this episode because I'm talking to a fellow author, fellow Kiss fan, and someone that's come out with a really, really cool and I'm going to say unique take on a Kiss book. Mr. Ric Howard, how are you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun.
You may some of you, if you're Kiss fans, you may know Rick from his YouTube channel and Instagram page called "It's All for You, Demon." And if not, well, you're about to meet him. So Rick's got a book out, as I do via Amazon, and it's a very unique take because I've asked myself the question many times: how many more Kiss books does a fan need? Well, Rick's managed something that I think is a really cool idea. This is called Rock and Roll All Night and Journal Every Day, a year-long guide celebrating the fun of being a Kiss fan. And honestly, I think that's something a lot of Kiss fans forget. It's supposed
Mhm.
to be fun.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be fighting over this lineup or this album or that album. It should be about fun. And so I guess we'll get into the book, but Rick, give us a little bit of history. Like, how did you get into Kiss, and what eventually led you here? Because there's always got to be things along the way that happen. What gave you the idea and all of that?
Yeah. I became a fan very late. It was in the non-makeup years. It was about 1988, and my best friend Danny showed up at my house. He had Phantom of the Park on VHS and Gene Simmons solo cassette, and we watched Phantom, and we listened to that Gene Simmons solo cassette, and I was just sold. I had been a Motley Crue fan for a very long time, so I was kind of into those theatrical rock bands and glam rock, and I just bought into Kiss. I loved every bit of it. I loved the music first and foremost, and then just the image and Phantom of the Park is so nerdy. I just bought into it and loved it. And then as I, bought my first magazine and I learned about all the merch, and it just opened up. It was just everything I loved about pop culture. Growing up as a Star Wars kid, you collect everything that you possibly can, and Kiss had that as well as the music. And I loved it so much, and just became a fan and a collector. And around probably the 2000s, probably 2014 or 2004, I thought, I want to write a Kiss book because there's Kiss books out, and I have a story to tell too. And I wrestled with that for a very long time. And I thought, nobody wants to. There's so many books about the history of the band. They're from New York. Paul drove a cab, all that. I want to tell a unique story, but then nobody wants to hear my story. Nobody in Ohio is going to care that I watched Phantom of the Park and became a Kiss fan. And around the final show at Madison Square Garden, well, leading up to that show, everyone was talking about what's going to happen when Kiss is no more. And I thought, well, we can still have fun being Kiss fans. And so I just kind of challenged myself. I was like, can I come up with something every day to have fun about Kiss? And so I just challenged myself to write 365 kind of topics of Kiss fun. And it just like flowed. It came out really fast, and I mean, I like it. I'm such a nerd with the band, and so are my friends, that some of this book probably gets a little nerdy for the common Kiss fan, but it's all fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as getting into the band late, I got you beat. I didn't get into them until Alive 3 came out. So
Oh wow.
don't worry about that.
I
Yeah.
love Alive 3.
Alive
That
3
that
had
era.
all of the Kiss songs that I ever liked, like in one spot. And
Hmm.
I thought maybe it's time. And then, yeah, it went on from there. So, yeah, this is literally a daily, it's a journal. It's,
Hmm.
you almost want to buy two copies, one to keep, untouched, and one to actually write in. And the cool thing is that, for a band that's been around as long as Kiss and has such a colorful history and lineup changes, it's easy to come up. There's lots of release dates, album release dates. There's lots of birthdays. There are things that you could say, okay, well, this happened on that date. This happened on that date. But you went a whole year of Kiss. How hard was it to complete? Like, I'm sure you probably thought of 50 things right off the top of your head once you get all those birthdays and album releases.
Yeah,
But after that, like, did you really have to struggle? Like, what more can I say with this?
there were times. I definitely went through the discography and I wrote down every release date, and then that got challenging because sometimes Wikipedia has this date, and then
Mhm.
Kiss Online has this date, and no one really knows when the first album came out. That's still a mystery. It's 19 February 1974 sometime, right? But
Yeah.
uh I did all that, and then I did birthdays, and then coming up with things to talk about every day actually wasn't hard because I am such a nerd with this. I I can always find something, even if it's just the intricacy of uh, a piece of the album art.
Yeah.
We could talk about the cross Peter's wearing on the solo album. Anything that the Paul Stanley solo album having the two covers with the V neck and the blurred neck. You could just anything like that. And sometimes I get a bit nerdy in it, but it's like I said, it's all about being a fan and having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's fun to be had being a Kiss fan. Unfortunately, and Kiss is not the only band. I mean, I wrote a book about Sammy Hagar, so I mean, I get it from the Van Halen fans. I mean, there's people that are going to like it and people that just aren't.
Hmm.
And even bands, you'd think that a band like Kansas would be fairly innocuous, but no, no, it's the original or nothing, and I've never understood that. But maybe it's because I got into these bands later. I don't have that attachment to, I've just enjoyed the history of it. And with the Kiss history, yeah, you can really dive deep. As far as album release dates go, yes, I wrestle with that because sometimes we both make daily posts on social media. And,
Hmm.
you know, you always get someone saying, well, that's not what was released.
Hmm.
Okay, well, when was it? Well, I don't know. A good friend of mine, Chris Preston's actually put the work in. He sent me a copy of a spreadsheet he works on. He uses Friday Morning Quarterback and all these industry sources to, so when he tells you that something's a release date, I believe it. But for some of them, yeah, you're right. Especially when a band is early in their career, I think the best thing to do is just be like, like Christmas. Let's all just agree that it was this date and let's call
Yeah.
it that.
Uh-huh.
Gene would
And
love
the
to
and
hear
the
that, right? Gene would love to hear that comparison.
yes.
But yeah, and another thing about release dates, well, a lot of them came out in September.
Oh my gosh,
A lot
yeah.
of albums came out in September of various years.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it's really cool, and it's I find it heartwarming because there are so many of us out there, and it's like your fandom. There's no wrong way to be a fan. You can just simply like the music. Maybe you've got a couple of CDs. Maybe that's it, or maybe you strive to find everything. That's fine too. As long as you don't give anybody else crap for the way that they want to enjoy their music and everything, and you're not going to make everybody happy. But if somebody wants a fun Kiss book, and what I like about it is uh, it does become your book. It does become personal.
Yeah, and that
Everybody's
was
got a Kiss story. Everybody's got an entry point.
yeah.
Not everyone was watching the Paul Lynde Halloween special. I certainly would have been at 2 years old. Not everybody saw MTV when the makeup came off. So your entry point, that's as valid as anything. And it doesn't matter if you got into them 5 years ago. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. The idea of this music living on, and Kiss will live on as long as the music is still out there and people are still talking about I don't think we'll ever come to a time when people aren't talking about Kiss in some capacity. I just think
Oh
they've made their mark,
yeah.
and so this is a fun way of saying, there's enough here for a year's worth of something to think about. And
Hmm.
chances are what it'll do, and what reading a good book on a band does is sends you back to the catalog, sends you back to, maybe you haven't listened to Hotter Than Hell in a while, and you go and listen to it and say, oh yeah, I forgot how really good this part of this song is. And it's funny, as Kiss fans, I mean, I gripe and moan about certain things amongst, circle of other Kiss fans, but I don't bother with the negativity online. I try not to.
Yeah.
Too many
Kiss,
people do.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere for some reason with Kiss and Van Halen. I see it so much in Van Halen. And I, like you said, your Sammy book, I grew up loving, David Lee Roth, and but I love 5152 and OU 812. So I love the Sammy era. And for a long time, I was always, picked a side, picked a camp. And then one day, kind of as an adult, I was like, that's stupid. I love the band,
Yeah.
and it's the same way with Kiss. And I think, as you said, us becoming fans later in Kiss, like, I knew Bruce Kulick and Eric Carr, and then I knew Bruce Kulick and Eric Singer. So when Tommy joined the band, that so many people hate that, but I didn't mind it. It's still Kiss. It's still fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't understand how it's one thing if you don't like the music, but when it gets personal, that's when it's that's not cool anymore, guys. That's not when that happens. Yeah, when like I said, I got into the band with the Live 3, so I had an enormous catalog to take it, and it was fun because within that catalog, there's a lot of variety. People don't realize, like, Kiss has this reputation, 3-chord rock and roll, and that's it. But well, yes, the first album doesn't sound anything like Unmasked, and Unmasked doesn't sound anything like Revenge. So if you're going to span those eras, and there's so much in between, I mean, I'm fascinated with the period between 1980 and 1983 because there's so much that we really don't know about when things happened, and also I'm fascinated with the music that came out in that era too. I'm a huge Creatures in the Night fan, and that quickly became my favorite Kiss album, with sometimes Dynasty, but most of the time it's Creatures. So, here we are off topic talking about Kiss albums, right? That's the fun of it. And, I like the fact that, just to give people an example, like, okay, so, how do you organize your Kiss music? That is a good question. I mean, I like to keep my stuff in alphabetical order. But, if you're a huge Kiss fan, do you have it separate? Do you not? How do you, do you, one thing I've wrestled with, what about the solo albums? I classify them, I call them the Kiss albums, as the ads used to. I put them with my Kiss stuff. They're in between like Double Platinum and Dynasty, but maybe some people have them. They got the 78 Ace Frehley album along with the Frehley's Comet stuff. No wrong way to do it. And that's that's when it gets fun. And I think this is a way to, all over the world, people can say, doesn't matter if they got into Kiss 2 years ago, or if they got into them, they heard Rock and Roll All Night on an AM radio in 1975. Doesn't matter. They can still rock and roll all night and journal every day. So, Rick, I'm looking at your bio on Amazon here. By the way, I love the photo of your dog against the Creatures of the Night background.
Oh, thank you. That's
anybody. I'm a dog lover too, so it's that's a lot of fun. But I have to ask, because everybody asks me, you've done this book. Do you have any other plans on writing?
In 2023, I created a fanzine, and I did it like very old school, kind of like Xerox looking. I wanted it to look like an 80s fanzine, and I called that the Kiss Wax Pack, because I always say like waxing nostalgia. So I did 4 issues, came out quarterly. It was just 1 year thing, and each issue was an era of the band. And I'm very seasonal when it comes to any album. And like, for instance, 5150 to me is a summer record. And so Unmasked is a spring record to me, Dynasty is a winter record, and Creatures is a Halloween record. And so I'm very seasonal. So when I wrote that fanzine, it was basically into seasons. So issue 1 was the spring, so it was all Unmasked. And I had so much fun with that. I kind of want to do another book that is kind of like a fanzine book, and I don't know how I'm going to go about it, but it is in the cooker, and
Yeah,
so I'm kind of tossing it around. And
you know, it has to work for you. It has to make sense for you before it goes any further.
mm,
And I certainly understand that. And that's an interesting point about albums being seasonal. That is, because sometimes albums are either seasonal for me because of when they came out, if I bought them new, or if I got into them later. It reminds me of the time, like, there's albums that would have come out in the winter that I discovered on a particular summer. But yeah, I like that idea. And there's something so cool and old school about fanzines because it's real. There's no, there's no artist or record label spin on it. It's from the heart. And so we look forward to that. As a fan, though, I mean, over the years, I'm sure that, like most of us, you've amassed a ton of other, Kiss books. What are some of your favorites, official and unofficial?
The Hottest Brand in the Land book by Nicholas Buckland is probably one of my all-time favorites. The Unmasked book that focuses on the '80s era, that was really
Greg Prado?
yeah.
Yeah, Take It Off. Yeah.
That book
Yeah.
was a almost felt like a godsend because it was like, oh my gosh, we're getting a book that's focusing on the non-makeup era.
Exactly. Yeah.
It not to complain, but it bothers me that Kiss just ignores that era so much. There was so much great music in that era and great albums, and then of course a lot of Julian Gill stuff is good.
Oh, the Mask Hysteria book is incredible. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the photos in there.
Julian was a great help to me in helping me transition over to Amazon publishing. So yeah, great guy.
Yeah, that Unmasked book and his Elder book is amazing.
Oh, the Odyssey with Tim McVeigh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When that came out, I was like, hallelujah. I've been wanting a book on this. I've been wanting to, I want everything that there is to know about the Elder, because I'm one of those. I actually like the album quite a lot.
Oh, so do I. Yeah.
But I always tell people that's with an asterisk. I like it because it was one of the albums. Like I said, I got into the band in '93, and I always heard about this Kiss album that no one dared talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that made me want to hear it. That made me want to, why? I want to hear it. And but I always say, like, if I'd have been waiting for a new Kiss album in 1981 and that's what came out, I don't know if I would have liked it. So it makes a difference, right?
Yeah, very much. And that I'm the same way with Dynasty. I love Dynasty, but I can see how a 13-year-old kid getting that record in 1979, coming off of like Alive 2 and Love Gun, would have been like, what is this?
Yeah. Sometimes albums need time to age, I think. Yeah, those are great books. Chris Lentz Kiss and Sell book is one of my favorites. That was a really eye-opening one. And with Greg Prado, and I've interviewed Greg too. The companion to the Take It Off book is the Eric Carr story. I really enjoyed that. They kind of talk about the same era, which is that's a great era, and it got ignored. It's funny, like, and I think you can relate to this. There was the band themselves. They drew such a thick line between makeup and non-makeup when they reunited in the '90s. I mean, you were not going to hear anything past 1979 in concert. When I saw them in Montreal in '96, they didn't go past Love Gun. Like that was
wow.
It's like, that whole time period is, to the point where I remember seeing a cover band, a Kiss cover band around that time. And in between their sets, they were playing music over the PA. This song comes on. And I'm like, I know this song. Who is it? And I couldn't figure out who it was until the band came back on stage and the guy that was playing Paul started mouthing it. It was All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Oh, wow. I was like,
it's Kiss. But that's because there was such a, thankfully they loosened that up, because that was ridiculous to overlook all that great music. But here we are getting off topic again, folks. And if all of this sounds fun, then you definitely will enjoy Rock and Roll All Night and Journal Every Day, year-long guide celebrating the fun of being a Kiss fan by Ric Howard. Is this all of this stuff on the cover? Is this all your personal merch?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I grabbed a little bit of all of my history Of course, exposed right around the era that I got into the band. That ticket stubs from one of the end of the road Madison Square Garden shows, which I was very fortunate to go to.
Is
And
this a
then,
gold?
yeah, it's the Australian Combs that came out in
Oh,
1980.
oh,
Uh,
cool.
the Lady Jane Combs.
Yeah, awesome.
Those are fun, and like you said, I'm such a sucker for 1980 Kiss because I love the fact that they were nothing in America, so they went to Australia and built it up like they were the Beatles, and it was just a marketing nightmare, but
Yeah, it
fun
was and it
history.
wasn't, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I love the fact that they had such a big hit with Shandy over there,
Yeah.
and so Forever and a Day, is even when they got back together in '96, they had to play it. They could not play that over there.
Hmm.
Yeah, so many avenues to go down as a fan, and and this book will remind you of all that. I will post the link to it below. Follow Rick on socials under It's All for You Demon, and yes, I look forward to this. I look forward to any future projects, and when they happen, we'll talk about them.
Well, thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
I know what it's like doing your own books, and I like to give a shout out, especially if it's on a book that I like or a band that I love. So it's always fun to give a little shout out. So yes, Rock and Roll All Night Journal every day. Pick it up, add it to your Kiss collection. You do not have another Kiss book like it. I can almost guarantee it right now. So it's available on Amazon. We'll have the link posted below. I want to thank everybody for watching this edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Go listen to some Kiss.